Hi everybody, it's Christina Quick, and this is going to be a sample medical health reading that you can offer your clients. So I'm going to walk you through how to do the 3x3 or 9 card spread, which is what I typically recommend. It's very easy to get started with this spread. And what I found with medical readings, or health-based readings rather, is that the less cards, honestly, the better. Because when we start pulling too many cards, we can get some kind of conflicting cards or conflicting ideas, and it can kind of be too much. So I typically recommend starting with a 3 card, a 5 card, or a 9 card spread, and just basically sticking to that because this can give you well enough information to put together a really in-depth health reading. So the client question, this is actually based off of a past client that I had many moons ago. This is a client that I was reading for and doing some health coaching with back in the day. And her issue was that she was a heart attack survivor, and she was under specific directions from her doctor to really change her diet up. So she had been following a plant-based diet, and this is probably about, I think it was around 6 months after her initial heart attack. And so the client question is, a client contacts you and informs you that she is a heart attack survivor and has since switched to a more plant-based diet. She has a routine checkup coming up soon, and she wants to know how it's going to go. So client messages you, they say they want a reading, or they buy a reading from you off Etsy or wherever, and it's someone that you know, or it's someone new to you. When there's someone new to you, I really do recommend getting information beforehand and not just making wild guesses into the wind. Though, it's up to you how you really want to work. I prefer, when I'm doing more like health conscious readings like this, to have the backstory. And that's because I don't want to just, sit there and I could come up with a million different things, say a million different things based on these cards. But I really want to make sure that I'm hitting the right areas, especially with people who are asking health questions. They typically are people that are needing answers right away, or they have kind of like an energy that is anxious, or that's, you know how it is when you're dealing with medical issues. We've all been there before. And so getting answers and getting the right answers is really important. So I prefer to have information. And so that's what this client came to me for. She said she was a heart attack survivor. She said she wanted to know about how her 6-month or 1-year checkup was going to go, or something along those lines. So what I did is I pulled a spread out, and I went in, I found the woman card. That's what I always do. That's my personal process. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. But I went through my deck, pulled the woman card out, shuffled a whole bunch of times, and then I pulled the first 8 cards that showed up, and then I put them in a chronological order, starting from the left-hand side, the clover, going from the top row from left to right. So we have clover, ring, child. The middle row, clouds, woman, crossroad. Bottom row, letter, fox, lily. And that is how the 9 card spread is read. It's read from left to right, and it's read top, middle, and bottom. Now, you can also be a little bit more advanced with it if you want to, and you can do past, present, future. And for past, present, future, I tend to read top, middle, and bottom. But some people, and this is a totally valid way to read, but you can read the columns instead of the rows. So for example, the past could be clover, clouds, letter. The present could be ring, woman, fox. The future could be child, crossroad, and house. And to be quite honest with you, after I go through my little process here, that's when I actually go back and kind of do a little bit more of an intuitive reading with it. And that's where I kind of mix in those other types of ways to read that aren't necessarily traditional Lenormand, but they still are valid ways to read in cartomancy traditions. Okay. So getting out that video, or if you took notes, hopefully you took some notes about some of the medical definitions and things like that of the cards, or health definitions. We're going to go through this card by card first. That's going to be the very first thing that we do. So the very first card is clover, right? And we're thinking about it in a past tense. So clover, ring, and child. For me, in this particular situation, it's going to be the past or the events leading up to the present situation or what the client has already gone through. So we know that clover is about a quick recovery or a small improvement. It can also represent like seeking out natural remedies like homeopathy or plant medicine or herbal medicine, that sort of thing. And then we have ring, and ring represents medical disorder, condition, or disease that will require ongoing testing or routine checkups. Well, yes, that makes plenty of sense. This card can also represent the successful completion of a treatment. And then we also have child. So child can describe minor complications or a medical issue that is acute or less severe than initially thought. It can also represent like having a cold or a flu or something that is kind of short lasting, but could be contagious. Okay. So the very first place I would go is I would say, with clover, it looks like seeking out that plant-based diet is definitely something that was a good choice. It's showing up in the past as a way that has definitely improved. And we know clover means luck, opportunity, that sort of thing. So it's a good card to get. It does speak to some success about that. Ring is going to represent the successful completion of a treatment. So far, we know that so far it has been successful. The plant-based diet has been successful. And it's something that she's going to have to dedicate herself to it, right? Because ring is a commitment. So it's a new commitment. It's like being in a new relationship with yourself. 13 is child. So child is something that is less severe than initially thought, something kind of acute, or it could be something that's kind of a common issue. So the first off, I would say, if you've been feeling under the weather or you haven't been feeling good or you haven't had a lot of energy, it's likely that it's likely not due to the heart attack or recovering from the heart attack. It's likely due that you've maybe picked up a bug or, a sinus infection, or you've got a cold or you've got a mild form of the flu or something along those lines. So if you haven't been feeling great or you've been feeling a little bit under the weather, it doesn't seem that this is anything that's too serious at this time. It seems like it's something that you're going to recover pretty quickly from. The middle row is clouds. So clouds is really interesting because clouds describes a person's mental state, right? And so it can symbolize depression, but it can also symbolize like medication or a disease or condition or illness that is affecting one's memory. Okay. So with this card, I would say, how has your mental state been? If I was talking with this client on the phone, I would say, how has your mental state been? Or that, I can see there may be some issues revolving your mental state at this time. You may have been feeling kind of depressed, and that's reasonable and understandable. Like that's clearly reasonable and understandable. I would then ask, have you been experiencing any forgetfulness? Have you been mixing things up, mixing dates up, things like that? I would say if you have been experiencing anything like that, it's likely due to the medication that you're on, if you are on any medication, or it could simply be a side effect of just going through a bout of depression or a bout of sadness or something along those lines. But basically, I would ask how the mental state is with that person, because clouds represents confusion, doubt, uncertainty. In this situation, I think it also represents the client's doubt and uncertainty. So this is kind of like the frame of reference that they're going for. This is like what their mental state really looks like. And when they think about the past and what happened to them in the past and thinking about the routine checkup that's coming up in the future, you can see on one side the clouds are dark, on the other side the clouds are light. So it kind of shows like these competing sort of thoughts, but it also shows that there's maybe a little bit of confusion or doubt around that, just like a fog, just not really knowing what to expect, right? In the center, we have woman that represents our client. And then on the right-hand side of that is crossroad. So crossroad is one of those cards that it requires a decision, right? So crossroad represents being at an impasse. And especially in this case, since it's a medical reading, it would be being at an impasse with their health. Automatically, I'm wondering, my intuition is saying, okay, is she wondering if she can come off the diet now? Because I see her looking at two different paths, I would also say that, sticking to the diet, but also, let's see what the results are with the checkup to see what your numbers look like, get your blood pressure done and stuff like that. If you have good numbers, then maybe it's okay to start, you can start eating maybe a little bit more meat, or, something like along those lines. Like maybe you can go out for ice cream once in a great while, something that you can do as a treat, but not as something that's like a regular habitual type of thing. It also Crossroad can also represent that there are multiple treatment plans available. So it also could represent that the doctor may recommend another form of treatment. So not just a plant-based diet, but maybe at this point, maybe the doctor is going to start recommending, if the heart is healthy enough, some moderate, low impact sort of exercises. But it basically shows that there's multiple treatment plans available and multiple treatment plans that would be effective. And sometimes combining these multiple treatment plans can also be highly effective as well. And then the bottom row, we have letter. And so letter is going to represent the person's mental capacity, like how they communicate and how they can express themselves. And it can also represent your medical documents and things like that. So here's what I would tell this person. If this person was a client of mine and I saw this in a reading, what I would say is, if you don't already, I want you to go ahead and grab some sort of diary or notebook that you can turn into a journal, a medical journal, health journal for yourself, where you can write down all these questions that you have for your doctor, or these questions that you think about, up at 3 o'clock in the morning. That I know for me personally, whenever I go to my doctors, it's like, I have all these questions and I have all these topics I want to talk about. And then all of a sudden I get there and I forget everything. So this kind of talks about putting together like some type of journal or putting together some sort of documents. It can also mean asking for a copy of your medical documents, or asking for some medical literature, or asking for like a book recommendation or something like that. So what it says basically here is that there's going to be something involving communicating what the questions that you really want to know, keeping some sort of diary, but also there might be a need to request your medical records. And that's just I don't really know what for personally. What I could think maybe it could be is pulling additional records and having a copy of that. And then looking at Crossroad, because Crossroad and Clover really stand out for me. So this is a way that you can read, right? So you kind of look at the relationship the cards have. So up in the left-hand corner, we have Clover. And then on the right-hand middle, we have Crossroad. And then on the left-hand, we have Letter. And for me, those three are really standing out. Like I see kind of like tethers kind of in my mind's eye going to those. So I would almost kind of say get a copy of your medical records and start looking for a homeopathic or natural or alternative style kind of doctor. That may be something that they talk about at their meeting, in their checkup. That may be something that your client's already kind of thinking about, seeking alternative kind of help with someone who may be Reiki or Chinese traditional medicine or something along those lines, because the Clover represents, natural or alternative sort of treatment plans. And then Crossroad saying, maybe there's going to be maybe you're going to have two different doctors, a naturopath and a regular doctor. And then the letter stands for the medical records. And then further in along, so we have the future, right? We're working on the future, which is the letter, which is why I'm telling the client to do this in the future future tense, excuse me. Tell the client to do these things in the future tense. And then we have Fox. Fox can represent something that is, it might be representing itself like a symptom, might be presenting itself as one thing, but it's actually something different. And that's why I was kind of looking at the child up there, because here's another way you can do it. So you can look at the relationship between the outside cards too. So Clover, child, and Fox. So Clover up at the left-hand top corner, child at the right-hand top corner, Fox at the middle bottom row. Those kind of stand out to me as being interlinked as well. And I think that this is what's talking about is maybe she's been experiencing some symptoms that she thinks might be heart related, but chances are with Fox that it's actually not related to her heart or the issues that she's had with her heart in the past. This may be something else entirely. It doesn't look, from all of the cards, it doesn't look like, bad. There's no coffin or mountain or snake or anything like that. Like, those serious cards, like you need to go to the hospital right now. But there is something here that, she might be experiencing some issues, but with Fox, it's like it's presenting itself as one thing, but it's not actually that one thing. Fox is kind of tricky. It kind of shows you where, there is a little bit of trickiness, in there, and something that is like presenting itself as one thing, right? And it's really not. It can also represent that the current symptoms that she's feeling right now, there is no diagnosis for, or there needs to be like additional testing for, because it's not exactly what she thinks it is, or it might not be what the doctor thinks it is. I've seen that come up before too. And then the final card in the future position is House. And so House, generally speaking, House kind of describes a person's skeletal system, like their bones or even their teeth. And this card can also represent like the stability of one's health. So this is actually a really good card to get in the future position, because it really talks about like health is stabilizing. But I would also tell her that, there could be some issues with the bones and the strength of the bones, the strength of the teeth. If I saw this, I would definitely say, how long has it been since you've been to a dentist? Especially if you're feeling like you're sick, there could be a tooth infection. Also, I would consider the client's age if I do have that information. I think this client was like late 50s and 60s. So I would also maybe even talk about, okay, you might be having some osteoporosis, or you might be having some bone weakening, and that might simply because of the inactivity that you've had to do, because you've been focusing on getting your heart back into shape, and maybe you haven't been able to do a lot of physical activity. So then I would look up here, again, this is another way that you can read. You can look at the rows or the columns instead of the rows. So the row that stands out to me the most in this is the child, crossroad, and house. It's on the further right-hand side. And so when I look at this, that screams exercise to me, because the woman's walking around, right? And then the nature kind of part, taking a path on the crossroad, and then house, talking about bones. So, I would also say in this, if you get the doctor's okay, it might be time to start walking, to start doing some light exercise, and that will help you build up your bones and build up your strength again, because house really represents like strength and your ability to carry yourself, right? So then after I'm done with that, I look at that and I say, okay, this is what I've got. And then now comes see, I was already kind of doing some of the intuitive part, but now comes time where I kind of look at the outside cards. And the cards that I really like to look at on the outside are the four corners on the outside, which is the top left clover, the top right child, the bottom left letter, and the bottom right house. And generally speaking, all of these cards are genuinely positive, meaning that there's nothing too alarming. So, she wants to know how it's going to go. Honestly, if I was telling this client how it's going to go, I'd say, it's going to go pretty good. It's going to go pretty well. I don't think that you're going to be devastated. I don't think there's going to be any, too negative news. Looks like, you're on the path to being mended. It looks like you're doing everything that you need to be doing. Looks like you're doing everything your doctor told you to do. And then the next thing I look at is the inner core cards, the inner cross. And so the inner cross is the top middle ring, the middle left clouds, the middle right crossroad, and then the bottom middle fox. And so I look at these cards and I say, yeah, they all kind of have a duplicate, don't they? All of them have a duplicate except for the fox, but the fox's meaning and metaphor is duplicity, isn't it? And so there is this energy around here that there might be two things going on simultaneously. And so what I would recommend doing, I would tell the client, I recommend that you not only visit your heart specialist, but I think you need to go in for an overall checkup and overall blood work, because it appears that there may be another issue going on here that is not related to the heart, but something that's kind of minor, that's kind of early in its tracks, and that I think if you did some blood work, you would be able to find that. It could be a vitamin deficiency that's making you tired, or a vitamin deficiency that's making you feel ill. It could be anything, and it could be even because of the medication she's on, because some medications will deplete certain vitamins, right? And so I would say, let's go to another doctor, whether that's a homeopath doctor or that's a regular doctor, but get a full blood checkup, see what's going on, get a physical done, because likely there is something else that might be going on, not as serious, but something you might want to be aware of and you might want to get checked out. All right, so that's how you do a medical health reading using Lenormand, and I hope you learned something from this, and I hope you really enjoyed your time here. I also have some other videos up on YouTube. Actually, I have this deck for sale, the Lucky Clover Lenormand. It's a deck I created, and there will be a link in the PDF where you can purchase that. And when you do purchase that, I will send you a PDF guide you can print out, and it's a printout of all of the 36 general Lenormand card meetings. There is also another video that another two videos actually, that I'm going to link to you in this PDF, which is, the first one is a 36 card overview of all of the Lenormand cards. And then the second one is a series that I'm starting, which is about combining cards. So it talks about the rider combinations of cards. Anyways, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the Facebook group. Bye.